I feel like we can run the table. I really do. I think the offense is starting to click a little bit more. We just got to put together a game where we're consistent from the first snap to the last. We've been, I think, getting closer to that. We've really been clicking at times in the last few games. I just feel like it just takes one. We get one under our belts, things might start rolling for us, and we can run the table.
That was a bad man himself, Aaron Rodgers, earlier this season, saying the Packers can still run the table after the team lost 4 straight and fell to 4-6 on the season. So it got us thinking about best sports guarantees. What comes to mind?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Because that to me wasn't exactly a guarantee. He said, I think that we can. But,
right.
I mean, it's a stretch, but let's go with it, right? So I was lucky enough that my last couple of years in the WWE, I knew I had to do some sports to kind of get here. And so I was at MSG Network, and they carry the Rangers, and they carry the Knicks. And so I got to work with a great Al Troutwig. So I would come in, and if he was doing the Rangers, I would do the Knicks. But there was a couple times he said, you know what, I want you to understand how important the Rangers are to New York City. Barry Melrose would love this topic, and I know we don't talk about hockey a lot. So I go to my first Rangers game with Al Troutwig, one of the great voices of all time. All of a sudden, the place starts going crazy. And I'm looking around, who they screaming about? The great Mark Messier walks into the game. And it was like, wow. The atmosphere when he walked in, and when I think back, and Al started telling me about how magical this particular guarantee was, it was 1994. It was the Eastern Conference Finals. They're playing the New Jersey Devils right across the bridge, right across the river, down 3-2. The great Mark Messier says, we're going to win Game 6. We're going to win Game 7. And we're going to win the Stanley Cup title. And that's exactly what he did. And from 1994, he ended up winning 6 Stanley Cups, by the way. I know my hockey a little bit. From 1994, this was 2007. This dude walks into anywhere in New York City, especially Madison Square Garden. There's nothing like it. To me, that's one of the all-time baller guarantees.
That's a good one.
Well, I have my litmus test. I have my test for what it takes to qualify as a guarantee, and you passed. Messier passed that test. Because your point is right. That's not, I don't think we're treating what Roger said as though it's a guarantee. I don't think he intended it to be a guarantee, and if he did, it's a weak guarantee. When you say, I feel like we can, what have you said? You said nothing. You've told us about a feeling you have, and secondarily, it's possible for you to do it. We can. That's, wow, bold prediction here. All we focused on was the run the table part, not all the pieces before it that made it weak. Here's how you make a guarantee. The litmus test is Joe Willie Namath. I mean, he's the one that defined the guarantee. 19-point underdogs, New York Jets against the Baltimore Colts, and he says, we will win the game. I guarantee it. I mean, he branded it with the guarantee. I guarantee it. We will win the game. And they did. That's by the way, that's a key component. Actually completing the guarantee. Because Rex Ryan would have like 6 of these things if it didn't matter how it turned out.
Yeah.
He knows how to make a guarantee. He just doesn't know how to.
But can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Does it matter that if you make the guarantee and then it doesn't come true, that anybody's going to remember anyway? I feel like Joe Namath decided to do this because they were such a huge underdog. And if they wouldn't have won, oh, well, we weren't supposed to win anyway. That takes that guarantee way down my list because it's a win-win. You win if it happens.
Okay.
You win if you don't.
Well, then how do you like this one? Because this is my personal number one.
Give me. Oh, I thought that was your number one.
No. I said that's the litmus test.
You suckered
that
in.
sets the standard. He sets the standard.
Okay.
Now here's my favorite.
Give it to me.
You know I'm a homer. But I think this is the number one. 1994. 92. Excuse me.
Wow.
1990.
Start over?
2. Jimmy Johnson. We will win the ball game. Put it in 3-inch headlines. Dallas Cowboys playing the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. He says, we're going to win the ball game. He says, put it in 3-inch headlines. That's for newspapers. That's a newspaper reference for the young kids watching. That's what 3-inch headlines meant. Print it. And it was such that, I don't even know if I can say the words that George Seifert said. I don't know what our FCC standards are and whatnot. It wasn't that much, but if you can't quote George Seifert, he said, Jimmy Johnson had...
No.
What?
I don't know what he had.
He said Jimmy Johnson had balls. I just don't know if they're brass or paper mache.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
He said, I don't know if they're brass or paper mache.
Okay.
Jimmy said,
You'll know very soon if you can.
They're not paper mache. And the Cowboys fulfilled the pledge.
But guess what?
They fulfilled the guarantee.
What made that a great guarantee is because of the opponent. right? You got to have an opponent that's a rival. You've got to have an opponent that it means something. You got to have an opponent that the fan base on the other side is like, wait a second, did you say that about us?
Exactly.
You said you're going to beat us? That does make it a great one. That's why, to me, Joe Namath, just because it was the Super Bowl or the last game of the season, doesn't make it great because it wasn't exactly a great rival. You don't have rivals in the NFL from two separate conferences. It's just because you hardly ever play each other. Yeah, I mean, give me a rivalry in the AFC. It doesn't happen. That's why it matters so much who the rival is or who the guarantee is against.
I disagree with you taking this away from Joe Namath because of this. The selling point on a guarantee is making clear that's what you're doing. I guarantee it. Put it in 3-inch headlines. This is what's going to happen. The fact that it was less probable with Joe Namath is what makes it so amazing. The fact that they were 19-point dogs is what makes it so amazing. When everyone else thinks it's impossible, and you're not just saying it's possible, but you guarantee it's going to happen, that, my friend, is made of brass.
Monday, I guaranteed on Twitter that I would beat you down 4 days this week. It wasn't a great guarantee because of who the opponent was. That's what I'm saying. It matters.
Man.
It matters who it is.
We can do a Twitter poll, find out.
Oh, that's kind of good. Shall we do a Twitter poll? Well, I guarantee.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
now he's not so bold.
No, I would feel bad for you.
All right, tomorrow, the wait for Ronda Rousey's return comes to an end. 13 months after the former dominant champion suffered the first loss of her MMA career to Holly Holm, arguably the biggest upset in UFC history. Tomorrow night, she returns to the Octagon in UFC 207 as she will face UFC bantamweight champ Amanda Nunes in Las Vegas. Guys, how has Rousey handled the layoff, Coach?
I was on the air when she lost in Australia last November. I have never been as shocked in my entire professional career on the air as I was that particular night. I think the entire world was, because we're talking about a female who is, with all due respect to Serena Williams, the most famous female athlete in the world in the last 15 years. There are three faces in the UFC. Dana White, the president, Conor McGregor on the men's side, and Ronda Rousey. And how she's handled the loss, I think it's been awful. I think it showed not just flaws professionally, but some serious flaws personally. And I think Ramona Shelburne has done a great job of getting her to sit down and talk about those particular flaws. But I've never seen an athlete in my career, in my life, that their personal success is so tied and their self-worth is so tied to their professional success. All great athletes stumble at some point. With the exception of maybe Floyd Mayweather and a couple other fighters, every fighter loses at some point. To be out of the sport, to be out of the limelight, to not do interviews for 13 months, and then for Dana White to allow her for this particular fight because she's still so internally devastated to not do media, to me is a mistake by Dana White, but he runs it. That's not my call. I just know that right now, she is all about tomorrow night. Now, there's been an Instagram photo that I saw yesterday. She is as cut as she's ever been. Her preparation is on point. But the question was, how has she handled it? And so many people have questioned her mental aptitude. They've questioned where she is with her heart as far as being a competitor is concerned. And I think that if she loses tomorrow night, it could be one of the most devastating blows to any athlete in the history of sport because of how she responded to that loss.
Well, one of the most devastating blows to any athlete in professional sport occurred to Ronda Rousey a year ago, to your point. I've never seen a defeat have that big an impact on somebody at the top of their game. As you say, failure's part of life. Losing's part of life. If you're not prepared to not only get knocked down, but more importantly, then get back up, you're not prepared to be champion. Very, very few walk through with an unblemished record. Here's the only question for Ronda Rousey. Her behavior now is clearly different than her behavior a year ago. Mm-hmm. Is that a sign of a lack of confidence or increased focus? Which one? We don't know because she's not letting us in. One of my favorite, there's this YouTube channel I watch from time to time. It's where I go for my deep, hard research. It's called
Oh, wow.
Charisma on Command. And this guy, he analyzes the way people speak, everyone from Donald Trump to Conor McGregor. And he talks about the way Conor McGregor conducted his press conferences, his interviews, before he lost to Nate Diaz. And the bravado and the eye contact and the continued belief, not just belief, but knowledge that he was going to win that fight carried Conor McGregor through. And then when it didn't, when he lost to Nate Diaz, his demeanor was completely different. He held eye contact much less. His boasts were much smaller. His confidence seemed to be down. Now, he then came back and beat Nate Diaz. So the question is this. I think clearly, as you pointed out, Ramona Shelburne's reporting has showed us, Ronda Rousey's confidence has been knocked down many notches. Not just one or two, but many notches. Now, has she spent her time since then building that confidence back up and focusing on this fight? Or is she still in the place she was 10 months ago? I don't know the answer to that because we're not into her private life right now. She's not letting us in. Dana White's giving her this exemption.
Yep.
But we're going to find out on Friday night.
The difference between the two, and I'm glad you brought up Conor McGregor and his loss to Nick Diaz, and there's also a lot of dollar signs connected to these two fighters as well when they are successful. Because you can't have multiple losing streaks and then still get the $5, $10, $15 million a fight. But what Conor McGregor did do after that loss, when he then fought him in August, he still had some bravado. He still showed up to talk about how he was going to do what he did to Nate Diaz. But what he changed was, I now know what I did wrong. I now know how I have to change how I train for a 170-pound fighter. He learned, responded, successful, and now look at Conor McGregor. Look how he responded to the loss. Look at Ronda Rousey. We don't know what she's learned from that knockout. We don't know what she's changed other than she's in great shape. We don't know because she hasn't told us. She's told Ramona Shelburne how it affected her as a person, but we care about Ronda Rousey as the fighter. I care about watching her on pay-per-view tomorrow night because I've enjoyed how she goes about her business, and I enjoyed how she entertained me while she did. But if you're not going to talk to the media, and you're not going to show me that you have come back in a positive way, I think she's protecting herself. That if she loses tomorrow night, now there's no bravado, there's no talk. It's, well, I wasn't prepared or I wasn't ready, and she can go away and maybe never see her again professionally.
Yeah, I'm tempted to agree with you. I think she's protecting herself as well. This doesn't, it looks like focus, but many people can focus while the media is shining their light on them, including Ronda Rousey, who did that for fight after fight after fight before she lost to Holly Holm. She was capable of focusing and winning and dominating while all the attention was on her. Now, it seems to be a distraction. Now, it seems to be something that takes away. So I'm concerned that her confidence is way down.
I hope that she's watching right now because I will leave it with this. I have an 8-year-old daughter. Her name's Kayana. Beautiful young girl. And Ronda Rousey always has said how she takes that so seriously that young ladies, young girls can look at her and say, I can do that too in a world that was dominated by men. I would say go back to that thought process. Yeah. And to me, a little girl who's 8 years old is not looking at Ronda Rousey as a failure. They're just not. And if you focus on that, then maybe you can get back to being the Ronda Rousey that a lot of young girls look up to.
I think if I had to give her any advice, I would say that you're more than just a fighter. You're more than just a win or a loss, because once you start doing that as an athlete, that's where you get into some very dangerous ground. And it's obviously hard to bounce back from.